No. Hey, no. That's bad.
Maisie started showing offensive as opposed to defensive or fear-based aggression and serious intent to bite at just 9 weeks old. Her owners did everything they knew to be right, including puppy socialization classes and 3 consecutive months of peer positive training with no result. In fact, Maisie's behavior got progressively worse and they became concerned for their physical safety in their own home. Being particularly food aggressive, treat training was actually becoming dangerous.
Nope. I'm scared to put my hand in there.
Maisie's peer positive trainer advised her owners that to combat her blatantly defiant and aggressive behavior, she would need a different approach, which would probably include the use of an e-collar. They were referred to me and we got started right away on a prong collar and e-collar. In our 30-minute consult alone, Maisie's owners commented on how attentive and relaxed she looked working with me.
Maisie, come. Yes. Good girl. Sit. Very nice.
Over the following week, we created a common language through the e-collar, addressed her over-aroused state of mind, taught her basic obedience, and within a month integrated her back into everyday life. We repatterned her automatic response to stress from frantic, impulsive action to calmly looking for guidance from her owners. Today, Maisie is thriving socially and emotionally and enjoying freedoms her owners never could have achieved with a pure positive approach. Oh.
So I loved watching that video. I love watching you train.
Thank you.
What you've done with Maisie is nothing short of incredible. So
Thank
really fun to see you guys getting to have some fun together.
Yeah.
I personally have worked in rescue for about 16 years, and it's only been probably in the last year and a half that my perspective has started to change on dog training. I have come from an exclusively purely positive perspective.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started really seeing a lot of people I knew hitting walls with their dogs and not able to get past a certain point with fear or aggression or anxiety, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I brought my dog here from Thailand, who is a wonderful little healer mix, who is also has a disability. She has no back legs.
Right.
So she's in a wheelchair, she's paraplegic. Yes, very sad, poor Dave. However, she, in her mind, is just a regular old dog.
Yeah.
And she has some tough breeds in her to manage and a huge change coming to another country.
Yeah.
So point being, I was dealing with some stuff I just couldn't get under control. And
Right.
it wasn't until the point when she almost mauled a small child that I had to really wake up and get serious and
Right.
know that I need to make some changes because her life is in the balance here, or someone's going to get very hurt. And that forced me to really get outside of my comfort zone and seek out information that was a bit scary for me.
Right.
Not of popular opinion, something I would probably be very publicly shamed for advocating for. Coming from a purely positive perspective, I know what I thought of those people and I saw what people around me were saying of those people.
Yeah.
So being that person was terrifying.
Yes.
It's much easier to condemn that person than be that person.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't feeling right. I carried on, and I actually found you on Instagram and watched the way that you were training.
Yeah.
And it was with such love, and you're so gentle and compassionate that it felt very right. And so I got up the courage to message you and ask if I could shadow and watch what you do, because it was important to me that I don't get this wrong.
Right.
I couldn't be wrong on this. There's a lot at stake here.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of my own research, a lot of online research, finding videos, and then it wasn't until meeting you and really getting to see what you're about and see the way that you work with dogs that I decided to let you have a crack at Dave.
Old Dave.
Old Dave. And life has been just tremendously better since then, and I've become a huge advocate of you and what you do in balance training. So let us know a little bit about you and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, okay. So I actually started at PetSmart as a pure positive trainer as well. At the same time, I was working for a dog walking company in Victoria, which has become a really popular thing now. But basically, we had packs of like 6 to 8 dogs out in the woods, and we had to manage all of those dogs. So I was doing that, and I was also working for a local rescue that was taking owner-surrendered dogs that had severe behavior issues. I was fostering them in my home, and basically had to figure out how to live with difficult dogs. And as well, I was attending weekly training sessions with the head trainer of that rescue. So these 3 kind of environments, all dealing with dogs, but in a much different way, each of them. And what I was noticing is that when I was able to say no to a dog, so when I was able to share consequences and structure and discipline as well as positive reinforcement in the same conversation, the dogs responded just tremendously better. The world made way more sense to them. They were way less reactive. I was able to bring super aggressive dogs to a point of calm and relaxation and just being able to exist in the world and be adopted out eventually. I was able to keep dogs in homes that were about to be surrendered or euthanized. And at PetSmart, it was a stark difference where we weren't allowed to share consequences, and it was obvious that from day 1 of an 8-week training program to the last day of that 8-week training program, there was no change in the dog's behaviors, and in fact, in some cases, the dogs had gotten worse. So where that ended for me was one lady in particular had a border collie that just it got worse. Her behaviors got worse at home, and she came to me at the end of the graduation class crying and just asking me to help her, and I knew that I could, but not in the context of pure positive. So it was time for me to go. And I just kind of developed my own style out of the education that I had. So I had gone to a 6-week training program using completely aversive methods, which I didn't agree with either. I didn't agree with pure positive, but this kind of balance of the two, having a well-rounded conversation, was what I wanted to give to dogs. And so far it's been the one thing that's been really successful in keeping dogs in homes, out of shelters, keeping them alive, so dogs are not being euthanized because they're being given the right information.
So when we say balanced training, just to be clear to everybody watching, balanced training means using reward for the behaviors that you want and punishment for the behaviors that you don't.
Yes.
And the way that you deliver punishment is through a prong collar and an e-collar.
Right.
Now, these are like super buzzwords. People at home are going to be super upset even to hear that I am saying we're going to punish a dog with a prong collar or an e-collar. So I want to sit here and maybe ask some questions that people at home want to know about. Today we're going to talk about e-collars. So you've brought one here. And I am going to wear it. I'm going to let you guys see what me getting a correction with an e-collar looks like, and we're going to ask Andrew some questions about e-collars, just so everybody has a really good understanding of what's going on, because I think a lot of the people just think, you know, it's pain, it's you know, you're forcing the dog into this. Let's first say, first question would be, are all e-collars equal?
No, that's a really good question, and the answer is no, they're not all equal. So there are, especially sort of more old school collars and ones that haven't caught up with the technology, or cheaper ones, they're going to be like a pretty abrupt, intense shock, if you will. So that's where the word shock collar came into play. So those ones are not ones that I advocate for, and definitely not ones that I use, because it just scares a dog, really. You don't really have lower levels to be able to have a really gentle conversation with a dog, and that's what I'm trying to do here, is to create a common language so that we can have an open dialogue, an open line of communication between me and the dog, and so some collars don't do that. The collar that I use is a muscle stimulator, so it uses the same technology as a TENS machine that you would use in physiotherapy.
So is that like a Dr. Ho?
Exactly that, yes. So if you put that right on those abs, you're going to get a 6-pack.
Yeah, I got 12 of them at home.
Yeah. So that's all it's doing. It's a muscle stimulator. It has 100 levels, which means that I can talk really softly to a dog. So I can just give like a gentle nudge, like, hey, I asked you to do something.
At like a 2.
Yeah, exactly. And first we find the dog's perception level, which I'll demonstrate on you in a moment. But from that perception level, we can go up from there. So depending on the state of mind that the dog is in and what we're trying to achieve, we can fluctuate on those numbers. And because we have 100 levels, we're never going to hit a ceiling where we're not able to communicate what we want with the dog.
Yeah.
So you might ask, well, why would you do this physically? Why do you have to be physical to the dog? It seems like that's going to harm the dog. And the answer to that is that it's the way that dogs communicate. So if you've ever watched a mom dog correct her puppies, she's not doing that with language. She might growl, so she's using some kind of like scary noises, intimidation. She's definitely intimidating them. She's using body language that's also intimidating, and she's definitely being physical. So you'll see teeth and snapping and getting after the dogs and then backing away. So there's an immediate consequence that's quite abrupt, and then a back away to let the puppies reassess and figure out what the right decision is.
Yeah.
So because dogs communicate physically, we're going to need to be physical with them. So that doesn't mean violent. So that's where it gets kind of misconstrued.
Yes,
Is that when human beings are physical with each other when using punishment or even just correction, that is violence. I'm not arguing that. That's definitely violence because we have the ability to communicate with language, whereas dogs don't have that. They communicate physically, so we're in a very fair way communicating at low levels that, hey, I asked you to do something, and we're just kind of attaching a physical meaning to our English word. Dogs hear us using English words all day long, or whatever language it is that we speak. They hear it in our conversation. Lily right now is hearing all of this chatter, and none of it means anything to her. So if I said Lily down, it's not going to mean anything to her because I haven't attached some sort of physical sensation to it. So that's really all the e-collar is doing. It's attaching physical sensation to the words I want the dog to pick out from my everyday chatter.
Right. And that is paired when training in rewarding the behavior that you don't. Because I think that's a big misconception, is that you're just strapping on something electrical, and every time you get a behavior, you're just beating this dog to know that like everything is controlled by the pain that I'm going to give you. But that is not the case. This is one piece of the puzzle. This is one side of the conversation. And the other side is reward.
Yes.
Be that affection or treat or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, if I'm teaching a dog recall, what the e-collar is doing is basically tapping on the shoulder. So I'm giving you a constant sensation. It's not pain, it's just a little bit of pressure or sensation in the case of the e-collar. The prong collar is pressure, the e-collar is sensation. So I'm doing this and saying, come, and this pressure stays on, and I might guide you with a leash, and I might even lure you with a treat, and as soon as you're committed to coming to me, that pressure comes off. So you realize that sound, come, means something. I get this sensation every time this person says come, and when I hear the word and then move forward, I get a reward. So you have kind of the whole picture. It's very black and white. The pressure is on when you're not doing what I want you to do. The pressure is off when you do the thing, and you also get a reward for that. So we're using everything in balance. So all of the quadrants of operant conditioning, not just one. So it makes sense to the dog.
Gotcha. All right, let's strap this puppy on.
All right, so muscle stimulator. So these two prongs need to be touching your skin. So these are just metal conductors. So they're going to go on a muscle. So if they're not on a muscle, if they're down here, you're not going to feel it. They need to be up like that on a muscle. So we're just using the forearm because it's the closest type of muscle to the muscle that the dog is going to be feeling it on. So we're going to start at a level 2, and I'm just going to go up from there. And this is exactly how we would find the dog's perception level. I would put it on the dog, tap at the lowest level, and go up by 2. And when the dog gives me some indication that he feels it or perceives it, so that could be kind of like a look in the direction of the e-collar, maybe kind of like a head twitch or like just a little movement.
Acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for the dog to jump out of his skin in fear or pain. It's just a perception level.
Okay.
So we're starting at 2.
Okay.
Going to 4. Going to 6.
Oh, I felt that.
Felt that. Yeah. So
Feels like when your foot's asleep.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really common. A lot of people say that. So it's kind of like a tingling sensation. And again, really key that it's just a sensation. It's not a punch. It's not pain. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
We have 100 levels, so we're
Yeah.
able to communicate in a way that's valuable to the dog.
Yeah.
And we're really it's just an attention getter, and it's a way to attach meaning to the word that I'm saying.
So can you give me a correction at the level that when you were working with Maisie in the video before,
Yep.
she didn't give you non-compliance because she's done this before.
Yes.
If she were to decide to turn around and, no, I'm not going to come, I'm going to do my own thing.
So she was working at a level 8, which is fairly low. That's just 2 up from where we just were. So what I would do if I said, Maisie, come, and she didn't come, I would repeat the command and say, no, come. And that's all that feels like.
It doesn't feel bad.
It's not supposed to.
No, it definitely, I mean, it's like, you have my attention.
Yes.
But I'm not like, ah!
Yeah, exactly. And I don't want to... If I scared the dog,
Yeah.
she wouldn't come to me.
Yes.
She would run away.
Yes.
Which is not the point.
Yeah, and I
So-
think in seeing that video as well, I think something I love about watching you train like that is because stuff that you do can be taken out of context.
Absolutely.
And I think you putting content online is, and any balance trainer is really admirable, because there are people out there who can take a clip of a video and shorten it down to 3 seconds and maybe take a few words you've said
Right.
and completely turn it into something that it doesn't and
Yes.
misrepresent it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But it's pretty hard to misrepresent what's happening
Yeah.
here. Like
Yeah.
that was the level that Maisie works at, and that was a level that I am very comfortable
Right.
feeling. Like if you were gonna constantly do it when we're working, I'm gonna listen to you and do
Yeah.
what you want, because
Right.
it's gonna get it frustrating and annoying after a while, but nothing about that was fearful or
Right.
scary.
And
And
the
you can
thing-
see that when you work with her. You see the way
Yeah.
she runs to you and she's happy and she kisses you and wags her tail.
Yeah.
Like, you have not broken any part of that dog.
In fact, we've built her back. We've built her up. So she
Yes.
came to me in a state of fear and panic and aggression, and like she was ruined before I got here.
Yes.
I just arrived here, and she was already in that state. So
Yeah.
I certainly didn't. None of this caused that. This
Yes.
actually brought her.
Because
out
I
of
think
that.
that's the biggest thing in rescue is people say, well, with a fearful rescue dog, this is going to make it worse.
Right. Yeah. And if I cranked it to 100 and slapped it on her and hit her at 100,
Gave her no context for it.
Yeah, exactly. That would absolutely ruin the dog, or at least create some trauma there where there didn't need to be any. But that's not what's happening. We're patterning. We're just teaching the dog that certain words have value,
Yeah.
and that they're non-negotiable. So,
Yeah.
and there's a good reason for that. This is an urban environment that dogs' instincts are not designed for.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you pay attention to the person that knows how to navigate the urban environment.
Yes.
It can't be negotiable because there's a road right there. There's a highway up across the hill there.
Yeah.
So if you're just going to run and act on every impulse, that's not going to be very effective for your life. It's going to put you in danger.
So another kind of question I'll ask you that I hear a lot is people say, well, I can get those same results, but I can do it. It takes longer, but you're being lazy. You're just
Right.
trying to get a really fast, quick solution
Yeah.
by using something when you could just be patient and put the work in
Right.
and do this from a positive only perspective. So
Right.
why don't you do that?
Yeah, good question. And I do want fast results because oftentimes this is a matter of life and death. So in the case of Maisie, when she came to me, it was, her owners were ready to return her. And had that happened, I'm confident she would have been euthanized. So we don't really have time to counter condition and or train and all of that stuff. Although that's very lovely, and we could certainly teach the same behaviors. Not only are we taking a really long time and allowing that dog to be in that state for longer, we're also not really being fair and giving all of the information to the dog. So it's still pretty confusing. They still don't understand that it's not acceptable, say, to bite when there's a hand near your food. We can counter condition all we want, but all we're doing is now teaching 2 different behaviors. So now the dog knows how to do whatever we distracted her with, but she also still knows how to bite, and she still doesn't know that it's wrong to bite. So we're giving an unfair view of the world. We're giving a skewed view of the world that sets her up for failure. So she never actually learns right and wrong. She just learns right, and the wrong is kind of ignored, and in the wrong context, she's going to get herself into trouble. So
Another perspective too, that is something I've given some consideration with my dog Dave. She has pretty bad arthritis in her front legs from overusage,
Right.
and she's only 3, and maybe she's 4 now. But either way, she's between 3 and 4, and she's not going to have a full life.
Right.
I will end her suffering before it gets bad. And
Right.
seeing the way she hobbles already,
Yeah.
I know I probably have maybe 7 years with her if I'm lucky. She's gonna have a shorter life expectancy. So do I want to spend 25, 30, 40% of that trying to train her and get her through this?
Yeah.
Or do I just want to get it over with and let her live the best life that she can?
Yeah.
You know, is that fair when you're dealing with a dog that has such a short amount of time? Why would you want to waste so much of that dog's time on earth
Yeah.
with it trying to figure stuff out
Right.
when you could just deliver a message?
Yeah.
And dogs are so in the moment that they can move from, the training onwards so
Yeah.
quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another thing to take into consideration is how much of your dog's life do you want to waste
Yeah, exactly.
trying to slowly integrate it,
Yeah.
into a situation. And so if someone's saying it's a Band-Aid, it's like, well,
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I had a lot of questions for you, but I actually think you answered quite a lot of them on your own. I guess maybe the one thing we haven't touched on was, especially in the rescue industry, there are so many fearful dogs. Doesn't something that causes discomfort or pain in a situation where we are, like when my dog Dave is lunging at that child,
Right.
She's not getting a whisper.
No.
She's not getting a 16.
Yeah.
She's getting a much higher level correction
Yeah.
that breaks through
Yeah.
her super intense desire to go take that child down.
Yeah.
So, question being, doesn't discomfort or pain make a fearful dog worse?
So in that situation, even if she's acting aggressive out of fear, I'm not addressing the fear in that moment, I'm addressing the aggression. So I'm letting her know in no uncertain terms it is not okay to act that way, and then we'll dial back down and deal with the fear on a lighter note. But definitely in the moment of aggression, of course she's not going to feel it at an 8. When I'm adrenalized, all types of things can happen to my physical body, and it's not going to register.
Yeah.
If I'm adrenalized. So in the case of aggression, or when we've kind of like missed the boat and our dog is already in reaction, we need like a pretty firm interrupter. So we interrupt that behavior, and then we can come down and kind of work them through the fear at lower levels.
Yeah.
So the way that we work through fear at lower levels is not through punishment. It's through interrupting the cycle of anxiety.
Yeah.
So very similar to the way that humans receive therapy for aggression, for anxiety.
Yeah.
Is interrupting the first moment of the start of the cycle of anxiety.
Yeah.
So you have a thought, and before that becomes an impulse, and then acting on the impulse, and then spiraling into anxious behavior and dysfunction and things that just aren't going to go well for me. If I interrupt the beginning of the sequence with just a hey, no, don't do that.
You
And
don't
then-
have to get to the
Yeah, exactly.
don't do that!
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Then we repattern the brain and the nervous system to
Yeah.
no longer respond that way in the presence of that trigger. So we put dogs in front of the trigger, absolutely, to kind of set up the situation so that we have a whole bunch of control over it. Because if I just suddenly come across whatever it is that's the trigger for my dog, and then I'm fumbling and trying to help her through it, or trying to offer a treat and counter condition, my dog is so out of her tree that she's not going to respond well to that.
Yeah.
So we want to set up a really controlled situation
Yeah.
where I can tap at a low level.
Yeah.
As soon as I see the start of the sequence.
Yeah.
So as soon as the ears and eyes go up, I say, hey, no,
don't worry about it.
we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's not a punch to the face punishment. It's just a gentle reminder we don't have to worry.
Well, and I think that's the thing people see is like, well, you're punishing her for even looking at it, and you're
Right.
not letting her just be a dog, and
Right.
it's like, well, we're just having a conversation.
Exactly.
The dog wants to do something. I've told them not to worry about it,
Yeah.
and they just have to now trust. And then what they get to see is, actually, it was okay. That guy with the shopping cart did walk by, and I
Yeah.
didn't die, and
Exactly.
he didn't attack you, and
Yes.
everything is fine.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and it's really important to start at the beginning of that sequence of thinking, because then if we don't check that, then it becomes an automatic response, and if that's continuously practiced, then it just becomes, you know, habit almost, and the nervous system just responds automatically. So we just want to make the automatic response different.
Yes.
You still see the trigger, it might still trigger you, you might even still have an impulse, but now you have a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
You don't just explode on that impulse.
Yeah.
You feel the impulse, and then you maybe look at your handler and say, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah.
And so now we're working as a team.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love them by leading them.
Exactly.
Love that. Well, you've definitely answered all of my questions and more. And I really appreciate you being willing to go on camera and speak about this kind of stuff. And I am super proud to be working with you and advocating for this. And mad love for you.
Yeah, back at you. I appreciate you so much.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. We hope that you got to learn a little something new. And if you have any questions, any comments, this is a safe place for respectful communication. You can privately DM either of us if you have concerns about being seen publicly. But respect is the big one. We want to talk about this, but we want to do it in the right way. So come at us with all your questions. We hope maybe we answered some of them today. But yeah, tune in and just keep watching. We'll be doing lots more of this together. So
Thanks, guys.
bye for now.